Apparently, Honoka Takamiya gets lucky enough to sit next to Ayaka Kagari, the most beautiful and untouchable girl in school. His only superpower so far was riding the same bus as her every morning. Despite sitting right beside her in class, they've literally never spoken. She's treated like a goddess. One day, Honoka drops his eraser. Ayaka, being the graceful princess that she is, picks it up for him. Now, to you and me, that's no big deal. But to Ayaka's rabid fan club, that's equivalent to Honoka proposing marriage in public. They drag him out of class, slam him on the floor, and beat him like he's the discount punching bag in a dojo. They even tell him never to make their precious Ayaka do work for him again. Later, while on classroom duty, Honoka goes to help the teacher but gets intercepted by one of Ayaka's slaves. Not in the fun way, just one of her obsessive followers. She snatches the papers from him, making it clear that peasants like him should never cross paths with royalty like Ayaka. After school, Honoka takes out the trash and finds a creepy bunny doll in the bin. On its belly is a note: today's weather, clear skies, but maybe a school building will fall. Honoka laughs it off like some kind of lame fortune cookie, but then, boom, a giant shadow looms over him. The school's clock tower is literally collapsing on top of him. As the building falls, he thinks, maybe I'll get isekai'd into a fantasy world with cute girls. The tower crushes him, or so he thinks. He wakes up instead in the arms of Ayaka Kagari, who's suddenly dressed like a witch straight out of cosplay heaven. Honoka freaks out like a professional crybaby, but Ayaka calmly tells him to stay still unless he wants to fall. Turns out they're flying mid-air on a broom. Then a cat-eared girl appears in the distance, casually pointing at Ayaka and calling her a workshop witch. With a snap of her fingers, she summons giant armored bunny soldiers to attack. Ayaka tosses Honoka into the air and then burns the soldiers down with fire magic before catching him bridal style. The bunny soldiers get back up, so Ayaka unleashes more fireballs and broom foo. She tells Honoka to stay close, but of course this dummy does the exact opposite. He runs off after the cat girl waving at him from behind a building. The second he gets close, an army of bunny soldiers surround him, grab his arms, and force him to his knees. One of the bunny soldiers walks up to Honoka holding an axe, ready to turn him into a nearly headless Honoka. Just as he starts wondering if this is some bizarre dream, Ayaka swoops in, sets the soldiers ablaze, and saves him like the true protagonist of the show. Honoka, still in disbelief, decides this is the perfect time to start flirting. He blurts out that Ayaka looks beautiful even in his dreams. Too bad he's saying it while half dead and covered in dust. Meanwhile, Ayaka treats him, telling him it's her mission to protect him. Ayaka quickly reminds him this anime isn't set in 2023, so no, he's still just a very confused dude. She tells him to let her handle the fighting. But when Honoka notices part of her hair is singed from protecting him, he spirals into guilt, thinking it's all his fault for being such an easy target. Then he realizes he's actually staring at her hair a little too long, and yeah, he's starting to simp too. While he's busy roasting himself internally, one of the toy soldiers sneaks up to strike Ayaka. Honoka, channeling his inner Naruto wannabe, throws himself in front of her. Ayaka catches him, gives him a soft hug, the animators made sure we noticed, and then completely loses it. Furious at seeing him hurt, she declares she should have just burned everything to ash from the start. With that, she unleashes her ultimate spell, Million Clover, and incinerates the enemy army in one fiery explosion. Later, Honoka wakes up in Ayaka's private room at school. She tells him none of it was a dream, though she'll explain the details later. For now, all he needs to know is that she's sworn to protect him because he's her master. Honoka doesn't get it, but at this point he's too tired to argue. They walk home together in silence. A few days later, school life returns to normal, except now Honoka is enemy number one. Why? Because Ayaka decides to sit with him on the morning bus. The jealous glares from her fan club alone are enough to give him heartburn. He even pretends to have a stomachache just to escape the death stares. Unfortunately, his little escape plan fails when the bully squad corners him, grabs his collar, and tells him to know his place. Just as they're about to rearrange his face, Ayaka steps in, ties a bow out of his tie, and calmly warns the entire school she'll burn anyone alive who dares touch him again. At lunch, Ayaka doubles down by sitting with Honoka in front of her fan club. She even feeds him with her own hands, claiming she cooked it herself. Honoka, meanwhile, is one step away from either fainting from embarrassment or food poisoning. Honoka feels like he's finally living the dream, Ayaka feeding him lunch, sitting beside him, treating him like someone who matters. But then reality hits. 20 of Ayaka's fangirls are staring daggers into his soul like he just stole their Wi-Fi password. Feeling like a walking third wheel, Honoka panics, stands up, and announces he'll just go eat alone. Ayaka, naturally, is not pleased. She torches everyone's lunch in retaliation, giving the fan club a taste of what it means to piss off the fire princess. Somewhere in the ashes, someone's bento box is crying. Meanwhile, Honoka sulks in the courtyard, feeling guilty for hurting Ayaka's feelings. He wanders to the spot where the school building supposedly fell on him, only to notice, surprise, everything looks perfectly fine. Then, out of nowhere, the cat-eared girl shows up. She explains the falling building was just an illusion and then roasts Honoka to his face, calling him a clueless dummy for walking right into her trap. She transforms into her witch outfit and introduces herself properly, Tampopo of the Tower Witches. Her mission was to kidnap his dumb ass. She summons a fresh army of toy soldiers, but Ayaka immediately appears and snatches Honoka away. Tampopo smirks, saying she was waiting for this, and orders her army to attack. This time, it's not just a handful of bunnies. An entire wave of soldiers swarms Ayaka, stabbing her with spears and blades from every direction. Honoka collapses to the ground, horrified, only to look up and see Ayaka shielding him, her body full of more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese. Even while bleeding, she asks if he's okay. Honoka, stunned, wonders how she's even still alive. Feeling pathetic, he tells her he'll believe in her no matter what, but also suggests maybe they should call an ambulance because that much blood isn't fine. Ayaka just smirks and says, "I made a fire, I'll be fine." She tells him if he really wants to make it up to her, he has to promise not to ditch her at lunch again. Honoka agrees instantly because honestly, what choice does he have? With that, Ayaka unleashes her flames, blasting the soldiers back before burning them all into ash. Holding Honoka in her arms like a literal princess, she glares at Tampopo and threatens to roast her furry ass. Tampopo panics, calls in reinforcements, and barely escapes the scene with her tail singed. When Honoka opens his eyes again, the battlefield is completely clean, like nothing ever happened. He and Ayaka walk home together, calling it a day. Episode 2. The next morning, things get weirder. 5 new transfer students join the school, and surprise, it's Tampopo and the other Tower Witches, now disguised as normal classmates. Honoka, Dart, keeps pestering Ayaka to finally explain why he's being targeted. One morning, he insists on asking her again, but notices she's not on the bus with him. Weird! At school, he changes his shoes, walks to his class, except somehow he doesn't end up in class. Instead, he finds himself inside something called the Torture Society Club. Instead of questioning why this Cursa Club even exists in a school, Honoka immediately demands answers from Ayaka, who's standing there with the new students. She casually explains that she cast a spell on him so he'd subconsciously walk here instead of his classroom. After dealing with the Tower Witches, Ayaka turns back to the tied-up girls and declares this is a witch hunt. Her plan is to wipe them out since they're a threat to Honoka. He's not sure if she's serious or just showing off, but when he sees the girls gagged and struggling, he tells her to at least let them speak. Ayaka sighs, removes their gags, and admits she was only keeping them around as bait to lure out their last teammate. Honoka walks up to Tampopo and demands to know why they're targeting him. She smirks and says, of course Goody Two-Shoes over there hasn't told you. To put it simply, she's after your body and that white stuff inside you. Honoka turns red like a malfunctioning traffic light, thinking he just got propositioned in the middle of battle. Ayaka immediately shuts him down. Stop believing everything enemies say. Baka. Before he can process the awkwardness, Tampopo warns them not to relax yet, because their last member hasn't been captured. Right on cue, black slime starts dripping from the ceiling and engulfs the room. From it emerges Mai, who sets her fellow witches free, then snatches Honoka and phases through the floor with him. She gloats about her successful escape, forgetting she's basically comic relief in this show, not the big bad. Naturally, Ayaka isn't having it. She blasts through the floor like the queen she is, finds the defeated Tower Witches lying around, and strides toward Mai. Mai tries to sound threatening, holding Honoka hostage with her wolf familiar. One bite to his neck and he's done for, she warns. Honoka is, once again, wondering why every villain in this anime is obsessed with his neck. Ayaka tells him not to worry and casually promises to roast Mai in a second. Mai orders her wolf to bite, except when it clamps down, Ayaka ends up taking the wound instead. Honoka's neck was totally fine. Ayaka's now sporting a fresh bite mark. Furious, Ayaka sets Mai on fire and kicks her aside, forcing her to retreat with her squad. Later that afternoon, Honoka wakes up in Ayaka's private room at school and notices she's wearing a scarf around her neck in the middle of summer. He quickly realizes it's to cover her injury. She apologizes, saying she wanted him to live a normal, peaceful life. But with the Tower Witches constantly targeting him, that's no longer possible. The only way forward is to confront the mastermind behind it all, though she admits she doesn't know who it is yet. Honoka feels guilty that Ayaka keeps getting hurt protecting him. He tells her he doesn't want to sit on the sidelines anymore. He wants her to teach him magic and make him her apprentice. Meanwhile, at a cafe and dessert shop, the school's headmistress, who also happens to be Ayaka's mother, Kazana Kagari, meets with her old rival Kronor Schwartz VI, a villain who apparently just strolls back into town after a casual 130-year break. Kronor mentions that Medusa's students have been fighting Kazane's people and suggests she might want to join the fun. That weekend, Honoka gets a call from Ayaka asking him to meet outside. Naturally, he thinks it's a date. Spoiler, it's not. She's just finally going to explain the truth about witches, since he begged her for answers. On the way to school, they stop by a food shop, and Ayaka explains the basics. In this world, there are two main types of witches: workshop witches and tower witches. Workshop witches are the protectors of humanity. They set up workshops in populated areas to maintain order and stop magic from being abused. Tower witches, on the other hand, are selfish maniacs who break the rules, cause chaos, and generally act like the neighborhood gremlins. If Honoka ever falls into their hands, Ayaka warns, the world itself could be in danger. Inside the food shop, a waitress approaches them, speaking in a squeaky, high-pitched voice. Ayaka glares at her like she's about to burn her apron off but listens anyway. The waitress reveals that Kronor, a notorious tower witch, is back in town, and more of her kind are gathering here. Honoka recognizes the waitress as the school's vice president, who is also a workshop witch. Guess the student council's been hiding more magic than actual discipline. After finishing their drinks, Ayaka drags Honoka to a shopping mall. While waiting for her, Honoka notices a cute girl helping a lost child. Thinking she's sweet, he approaches her. Big mistake. She checks her notes, confirms he's her target, then casually kicks the child away like an unwanted NPC and pulls a sword on Honoka. Surprise, she's a tower witch. Her friends pop up too, ready for battle. Ayaka swoops in, setting enemies on fire left and right. One witch even pulls out a pistol and starts blasting like she's from Grand Theft Auto. Ayaka responds by whipping out a fireproof cape, deflects the bullets, then blasts them back using an attack that looks suspiciously like Ace's fire pistols from One Piece. The witches get roasted, literally, and Ayaka carries Honoka bridal style through the chaos. After the fight, Honoka apologizes, feeling guilty for dragging her into constant danger. He suggests maybe it'd be safer if they just sealed him away or locked him up. Ayaka shoots him down immediately, saying it's her job to protect him forever. She also reminds him that if he's serious about being her apprentice, he'd better start working harder. Honoka, touched, vows to grow stronger. Finally, they reach school, where Ayaka reveals that the entire campus is actually a workshop. She takes him to the headmistress's office, her mother, Kazan Kagari, to make it official. Kazan scolds Ayaka for destroying half the mall during their little shopping trip. What good is a workshop witch who wrecks property? She lectures. Then she tells Honoka that custom dictates apprentices must be formally introduced to their master on day 1. Episode 3. The next day, Ayaka takes Honoka out for training, but they're ambushed by Tampopo and her bargain bin team Rocket. One of them wonders if attacking Ayaka is even smart, since she's basically invincible. Tampopo, in peak anime villain logic, declares they'll use the rapid stream formation. Ayaka sighs, shows Honoka how it's done, and blasts them sky high. Honoka, of course, learns nothing. Back at school, Honoka opens his locker only to be buried in a tsunami of hate mail and death threats. Someone even tossed in a creepy voodoo doll of him. Ayaka shrugs it off, saying it's just her fanboys acting up again to actually harm him. Honoka isn't convinced, especially since he's now sitting next to her in class, studying with her, playing sports with her, and walking home with her. Basically, he's the guy dating the idol in front of all her crazed fans. No wonder he's on the school's most wanted list. Later that day, Honoka is about to practice magic, but Ayaka walks into the bus station and tells him to take a break. They hop on the bus together. At first, everything seems normal until Ayaka spots a glowing magical fish floating outside the window. The bus's destination suddenly changes from next stop to dead end. She stands up instantly and notices something horrifying. The driver is gone, the bus is empty, and sitting in the back seat with a smug grin is none other than Kronor Schwartz VI. Oh, and the bus itself, running purely on Kronor's magic. Ayaka tells Honoka to stay put and faces Kronor, who walks up to her and introduces herself. Ayaka prepares to shoot a fire spell, but Kronor stops her movement using her magic dictatorship. She then uses a powerful spell, but as expected, there's not even a single scratch on Ayaka. Honoka doesn't realize how OP Ayaka is and idiotically stands in front of her as if defending her. Noir laughs at his stupidity and tells him no matter how many times anyone tries to kill Ayaka, they won't be able to harm her. Then she casually stabs him in the stomach. Honoka falls to his knees and cries, but she tells him to stop acting like it hurts and get back on his feet. Confused, he realizes it really doesn't hurt. His body is unharmed. Instead, Ayaka collapses, bleeding from the same wound. Noir explains it's due to a special ability called damage transfer. Because Ayaka signed a contract with him, any injury aimed at Honoka is transferred to her instead. That's how she uses his inner power to be an invincible witch. But it means she must also protect him. Noir then tells Honoka that if he wants to save Ayaka, he needs to give her more of his power by drawing out the being sealed inside him, Evermillion, the White Princess. She even tries to force-feed him a magical candy that would release it by pushing it into his mouth herself. Ayaka, of course, isn't letting this cheap pervert steal her first kiss with her princess boy. She bursts out in green flames and knocks Noir back. She then warns Honoka that she'll transform into something she's not for a while, before unleashing a massive surge of power drawn from Evermillion. Ayaka's body changes, wrapped in green flames and dragon-like energy. Evermillion temporarily manifests through her. She instantly overpowers Noir, breaking through her barrier and slashing her throat. But before Ayaka can finish her, Noir retreats, leaving the two at the bus stop. Honoka wakes up first and notices Ayaka's wound is gone, though she's unconscious. He takes her to the hospital where the nurse says she's only exhausted. Back home, he discovers the wrapped candy Noir tried to feed him. He hides it in his drawer just in case. He also can't stop wondering about her words, that Ayaka's contract with him means she must have known him before they met at school. The next day, Ayaka takes him to the gym for training. She gives him his own witch robe and explains its features. When he tries jumping, he nearly hits the roof thanks to the robe's enchantments, and Ayaka Princess catches him on the way down. Then she tells him to try holding her the same way. She explains the robe makes them lighter. Next, she demonstrates summoning a broom with a wrist flick. Honoka tries the same gesture and summons nothing but disappointment. Suddenly, Ayaka's alarm goes off. Class is about to start. Students pour into the gym, but no one notices them. Honoka panics until Ayaka explains the robe also casts an invisibility charm that makes people subconsciously ignore them. Later, Ayaka grabs Honoka and soars into the sky on her broom. She says they'll practice flying until he can summon his own broom. She explains that workshop witches patrol their sectors this way to keep things safe, and at any given time there are at least 5 strong witches stationed in their high school alone. After flying around for a while, she brings them back toward the school. On the way, Honoka spots a kid being bullied and insists they help. Ayaka, ever the cold professional, says, "Nah, that's a job for the police. We witches only deal with other witches." Honoka, being stubborn and heroic in the dumbest way possible, doesn't buy it. He whips out his broom and jumps down, nearly dying in the process. He crashes straight into the bullies like a flying car accident, and they immediately dogpile him. Just when Honoka's about to be turned into a human punching bag, Ayaka swoops in and fries the bullies with her magic. Honoka complains she said witches don't attack civilians, but Ayaka explains those guys were witches too. That's why they noticed him despite the invisibility robes. Plot twist: the helpless victim being robbed turns out to be Kasumi's friend from school. Since she isn't a witch, she didn't see any of the magic happen. Episode 4. Meanwhile, in Rothenburg, Medusa is sealed away under what's supposed to be the tightest security imaginable. Naturally, she just breaks free like it's a paper bag and immediately goes looking for her favorite students. Cut to Tampopo and her squad sitting in a restaurant, plotting their next move. They admit it's tough to beat Ayaka and Honoka. Ren suggests they stop wasting time on Ayaka and just kidnap Honoka when he's alone. Smart move for once. Just as they're about to leave, Noir shows up all dramatic and offers to join their little plan. Next morning, Honoka wakes up and gets ambushed not by witches but by his sister Kasumi with a comb and hairdryer. She casually grills him about that call he got from a girl last weekend. Honoka panics because, yeah, admitting the hottest girl in school calls me master would probably end badly, so he lies about it being a random classmate. Kasumi isn't buying it. She cranks the hairdryer and threatens to fry his scalp if he keeps lying. She finally admits she knows he's been hanging around Ayaka and even gets bullied at school because her brother is hogging the princess. Just before Honoka has to explain himself, Mom swoops in with the classic anime mom whine. "Breakfast ready!" Saved by the rice for now. Meanwhile, Ayaka waits for Honoka at the bus stop, but she's ambushed by 3 witches from Tampopo's crew. Honoka, running late like always, suddenly remembers he was supposed to meet her. As he sprints over, he gets tripped up by Tampopo's toy soldier trap. She captures him and brags that Ayaka's probably getting wrecked right now since they know her weakness is separation from Honoka. Just then, a couple of toy soldiers suddenly go flying into the stratosphere. Tampopo looks up and sees a massive bear toy squishing her soldiers like stress balls. Turns out Kasumi isn't just a cleany little sister, she's a workshop witch too. Surprise loser! Tampopo loses her cool and summons her own massive bunny soldier. What follows is less witch fight and more WWE Toy Edition. The giant bunny and giant bear go at it like titan wrestlers. The bear shoves the rabbit down, but the bunny counters with those classic anime sad eyes before gouging the bear in the face. But here comes Ren riding a skeletal T-Rex. With Tampopo and Ren teaming up, Kasumi finds herself in a 2v1 situation. She doesn't hesitate though. She drops her secret move and upgrades her bear into a colossal titan. She stomps both the rabbit and skeleton into the ground, accidentally leveling more buildings than 9/11 in the process. After the dust settles, Kasumi casually walks over to Honoka, who's been sitting on the ground enjoying the show like it's movie night. She tells him she's the one who's been protecting him all along when Ayaka wasn't around. But when Honoka rushes to Ayaka the second he sees her, Kasumi snaps, jealous that her brother doesn't thank her instead. The two witches then argue over who gets custody of Honoka. Meanwhile, the tower witches grow restless, Medusa is back on the move, and chaos is only getting started. Medusa, being the petty queen of curses, tells Honoka to hop on his broom and scram, but she's got other plans. She curses Ayaka and turns her into stone. Honoka, in panic mode, begs her to let Ayaka go and promises he'll do whatever she says. Medusa just laughs it off. That's when Honoka remembers he still has that weird magical candy in his pocket, the one he got back when he and Ayaka started living together. Like a loser or a genius, depending on the plot, he swallows it whole. Suddenly, white light bursts out of him, and bam! A gorgeous white-haired vampire-looking woman appears, introducing herself as Evermillion, the White Princess. Medusa charges at her, but Evermillion casually blasts her straight out of the building, alongside the building itself. Honestly, that one shot probably cost more than the school's annual budget. Meanwhile, Kazan, Ayaka's mom, is chilling at her office window after a long day of work when she sees her multi-million-dollar empire falls asleep mid-battle while hugging Ayaka in mid-air. Later, he wakes up in the school infirmary with Ayaka sitting beside him. He asks if everything was just a dream, but nope, it was all real. Ayaka casually pulls back the curtain to reveal Medusa and her students resting in the next bed. Honoka nearly has a heart attack, but Ayaka assures him they're not enemies anymore. Ayaka Kagari brings Honoka Takamiya home and asks his mother if Honoka can move in with her. Honoka's younger sister Kasumi immediately loses her temper at the idea, but their mother, Mrs. Takamiya, surprisingly agrees. It turns out she has an old school arrangement with Kazan Kagari. Back in the day, they made a pact that, since they couldn't marry each other, their children would be paired instead. Wild as it sounds, the deal stands, and now Honoka moving in with Ayaka is the result. Later, Ayaka escorts Honoka to her mansion. Yes, the ultra-rich kind of mansion, and as soon as they arrive, they find themselves face to face with the witch Medusa, freshly escaped and clearly not showing up for a friendly visit. Ayaka leaps into action to protect Honoka, but Medusa smirks, uses her petrification power, and turns Ayaka into stone. The situation is desperate. With Ayaka immobilized, Honoka realizes he's out of options. He eats the risky candy that Cronoir gave him earlier, the same candy he's been warned about, and unleashes the hidden power of the White Princess, Evermillion, that resides inside him. She manifests, goes full throttle, and delivers a devastating blow to Medusa. The mansion shakes, the fallout spills into the school grounds, half the building gets wrecked, and Ayaka's world is in chaos. Kazane sees the carnage and loses her composure. She immediately orders a witch hunt of the Tower Witches, escalating the war. In a quieter moment after the battle, Evermillion points out a simple truth. All Honoka really needed to wake Ayaka was a sincere kiss filled with his true feelings. He does just that, and Ayaka snaps out of her petrified state. Fully revived, she takes down Medusa and her allied KMM gang with ease. Before the villain Cronoir can enact her next move, Kazan catches her and launches an intense interrogation. When Ayaka and Honoka arrive at school that morning, everything seems normal at first. Students fill the halls and the usual chatter fills the air, but as they head toward class, the science teacher suddenly steps in and stops them. Without much of an explanation, he separates Honoka from Ayaka, saying it's related to a lesson about Clark's third law, the idea that advanced technology can seem like magic. Once he has Honoka alone, the teacher drops his calm tone and gets a bit more serious. He tells Honoka that by using the mysterious candy something important has happened. One of the 5 magical seals has been broken. The teacher warns that this is no small matter and could bring real trouble if the wrong people find out. Before letting Honoka go, he gives him one last warning: he must not tell anyone about what he just heard. If Kazane, Ayaka's mother, learns about this, she might take extreme actions to keep the situation under control. Honoka is left uneasy, realizing that what seemed like a simple act has deeper consequences than he first thought. Later on, Ayaka decides to take advantage of her semi-official role at the school, where many students see her as a sort of princess. Using that authority, she takes it upon herself to make a bold change in the student council. Without waiting for approval or discussion, she removes the current president and appoints Honoka as the new one. The rest of the students are left surprised, but no one dares to question her decision. After school ends, things take an unexpected turn. Kasumi, Honoka's younger sister, suddenly appears with a powerful tranquilizer gun. She shoots Ayaka with it, knocking her down, and then kidnaps Honoka. Her plan is to take him far outside the city limits, believing that Kazan's influence and magical power won't be able to reach them there. For a short time, it seems like she might succeed, but Ayaka's resilience shows once again. She quickly recovers from the tranquilizer's effects, summons a massive dragon, and takes off in pursuit. The dragon fires on Kasumi and the giant teddy bear-shaped plane she is flying, stopping their escape before they can get too far. Meanwhile, Ayaka has been secretly keeping Medusa and the KMM gang inside her room at Honoka's house ever since their last battle. She doesn't tell anyone about it, and the group stays hidden there quietly. Tampopo, however, keeps trying to find a way to kidnap Honoka while no one is watching. She makes several attempts to do it silently, but every time she gets close, the situation changes and she misses her chance. While Tampopo keeps waiting for the right moment, Mei and Kotetsu end up running into Honoka by accident as they are coming out of the bath. They are surprised to see him there, and without hesitation, they capture him right away. The sudden action causes a stir just as Kazane returns home from a shopping trip. When she walks in, she immediately notices the scene, leading to a tense standoff between her and the group that has been hiding in Ayaka's room. Ayaka decides to side with the Tower Witches for one reason: to protect Honoka. Knowing how dangerous the situation has become, she chooses to merge with Medusa in order to increase her own strength. Even with that boost in power, things don't go as planned. Kazane steps in and completely turns the fight around. In the end, Ayaka is defeated, and Kazane knocks Honoka unconscious before sending both of them to a dungeon as punishment. While they are locked up, Ayaka manages to borrow some of Honoka's power. Using that energy, she breaks out of the dungeon, but the force of her escape causes heavy damage to another part of the school. The destruction leaves Kazane frustrated and in despair over how much trouble her daughter keeps causing. After breaking free, Ayaka stands ready to face her mother in battle, but Kazane refuses to fight her. Instead, she firmly tells both Ayaka and Honoka that it's time to stop and go home. Later on, Honoka experiences a dream about Ayaka's past, seeing her as a socially awkward little girl. She struggled so much with social interaction that her mother arranged for 2 young workshop witches who were also children at the time to watch over her and make sure she was safe. Even with their help, Ayaka often spent her free time after classes wandering through nearby schools, searching for a particular boy. After much effort, she finally found Honoka, the boy who would become so important to her life. In the present day, Honoka faces a serious challenge to his authority as president of the student council. The former president had lied to the notorious delinquent Rinon Otome Tachibana, claiming that Honoka had physically abused her. Taking the accusation as a personal offense, Rinon decides to get revenge. She mobilizes her entire hamster-themed gang to vandalize and trash the school, creating chaos before directly challenging Honoka to a one-on-one duel. Ayaka initially tries to assist Honoka in the fight against Rinon, offering her support and strategy. However, on the day of the duel, she intervenes in secret, cheating just enough to make it appear as though Honoka had won the match on his own. Later, it becomes clear that Ayaka's actions were planned from the very beginning. She had manipulated the former president all along, ensuring that Honoka's position at school remains secure and reaffirming his authority as president of the student council. Ayaka decides it is time to teach Honoka about offensive magic, wanting him to develop his abilities further. She sets up a rather extreme test, instructing him to summon a familiar by throwing himself off the roof of a tall building. Unsure of what to do and panicking at the thought of falling, Honoka struggles to focus. In the midst of his panic, he accidentally summons something unexpected, a giant image of Ayaka dressed in a provocative nurse outfit. The enormous figure appears just in time, catching both Ayaka and Honoka safely before its next action causes further destruction. The summoned image then punches a nearby building, demonstrating the unpredictable power of Honoka's magic and leaving both of them stunned by the outcome. Meanwhile, Kazane discovers the presence of a giant magical bomb hidden beneath the city. Realizing the threat it poses, she meets with a tower witch named Weekend in an attempt to negotiate and prevent a catastrophe. However, Weekend ignores her efforts and detonates the bomb anyway. The explosion destroys several buildings nearby, forcing Kazane to pour all her magical energy into limiting the damage and protecting the people around her. The effort leaves her completely exhausted, with her magic power drained. At the same time, Ayaka and Honoka are being escorted into a secure cell by other workshop witches who intend to keep them safe amid the chaos. But their safety is short-lived. Weekend has created a high-tech magical puppet that is capable of tracking them, and it finds their location. Ayaka quickly takes control of the puppet and uses it to destroy a section of the cell wall, allowing them to escape. Even after breaking free, Ayaka notes a serious problem. Neither she nor Honoka currently has access to their magic powers, making their next moves much more difficult and dangerous. The workshop witches end up getting thrown into a state of crisis as Ayaka and Honoka emerge from their cell, stepping out into a city that has been left in ruins. Buildings are damaged, streets are littered with debris, and the normal sense of order has completely collapsed. Without Kazane's magical power, the workshop witches stationed in the city find themselves completely powerless. They cannot perform any magic to help defend or repair the area. On top of that, reinforcements or outside help will not be able to arrive in time to make a difference. As the situation becomes more desperate, Weekend escalates the threat. She captures a group of workshop witches and attaches magical bombs to them, turning the hostages into ticking threats. She announces that they have 30 minutes to hand over Honoka, or she will detonate the bombs one by one, putting the lives of her prisoners directly at risk. The tension rises sharply as the time begins to count down, leaving Ayaka and Honoka with no choice but to act carefully and quickly in a city that is already on the brink of disaster. While Rinan and Atori try to control the situation and prevent further trouble, Ayaka takes Honoka down to the core of the city. Their goal is to renew the protective contract using Honoka's latent powers. The process takes time, but just before the deadline, Honoka manages to complete the contract. This restores the city's magic, allowing the workshop witches to move again, rescue the captured hostages, and capture Weekend. After being placed in a magic nullifying cell, Weekend calmly reveals that her capture was part of her plan. She explains that she allowed herself to be taken so she could destroy the workshop from the inside. Moments later, hidden bombs she had prepared earlier detonate, damaging the workshop and leaving several witches injured. Honoka then uses his new powers to restore and heal the wounded witches. However, the effort puts too much strain on him, and Ayaka quickly knocks him out to stop him before the pressure on his body becomes fatal. As Ayaka lays Honoka to rest in what is left of his home, Honoka begins to see several of Kazane's memories. Through these memories, he catches brief glimpses of her past and gains a better understanding of the situation surrounding them. Soon after, the science teacher Mikage contacts him and explains that they are now in an alternate reality. This new space was created by the city itself as a result of the contract Honoka made earlier. Mikage takes Honoka to an underground shelter where the city's residents are being kept. Inside the shelter, everyone is suspended in a state of sleep until it becomes safe to revive them. While Honoka is trying to understand everything that has happened, one of Weekend's followers suddenly appears and attacks him at the shelter. At the same time, Ayaka heads to a church to confront Weekend directly. The fight quickly turns against her when Weekend uses a series of bombs hidden throughout the church to drain Ayaka's remaining power. Weak and unable to fight back, Ayaka is captured by giant monster-like golems under Weekend's control. Weekend then reveals that she had planted all of her bombs throughout the city months earlier as part of her long-term plan. Meanwhile, back at Honoka's house, Mikage manages to revive Honoka while Atori is taking care of him. Once he wakes, Mikage passes along a new message stating that Weekend has announced that she will destroy the shelter unless Honoka is handed over to her within 30 minutes. Hearing this, Honoka and Atori hurry toward the site of a large explosion, where they find Ayaka completely drained of her energy. Honoka transfers some of his own power to her, allowing Ayaka to regain enough strength to fight back. With the energy she receives, she manages to defeat Weekend before the destruction of the shelter can take place. However, Weekend then reveals the final part of her plan. She had already activated her bomb. As Tampopo carries Kasumi out of the wreckage, Weekend's bomb detonates, wiping out all of the townspeople who were inside the shelter, including Mikage. Seeing the devastation, Honoka becomes desperate to save everyone. He calls upon Evermillion and strikes a deal, offering his own life in exchange for the revival of the town and all of its people. Just as he is about to complete the sacrifice, Ayaka steps in and replaces him, offering her own life instead so that Honoka can be spared. Following this exchange, the city and all of its residents are completely restored. The buildings return to their original state and everything appears as if the destruction never happened. Even Weekend is revived in the process, but she takes advantage of the moment and stabs Honoka with a knife. After the attack, Weekend decides to have Honoka treated and admits her defeat. As she leaves, she encounters Crow Noir, another powerful witch. Meanwhile, in the restored church, Honoka, Atori, and Mikage begin working on a way to bring Ayaka back to life. They use a mixture of Honoka's blood and a kiss in the process, and their effort succeeds. Ayaka regains consciousness. Elsewhere, Crow Noir is shown impaling Weekend and most of her subordinates on sharp poles. Kazane soon arrives and demands that Crow Noir hand Weekend over for questioning, but Crow Noir refuses, calling Weekend her dinner. The disagreement quickly turns into a fight between the two powerful witches. Later on, an unconscious Honoka and Mikage appear before Evermillion, who explains the details of the renewed contract Honoka has formed with her. She warns him about the consequences he will face if he ever tries to make a similar deal again. When Honoka wakes up, he finds Ayaka waiting for him at the door of his room. The two head out together and begin walking to school. On the way, they are confronted by the reformed KMM gang who try to threaten them. Even without her magic restored, Ayaka easily handles the situation by grabbing Tampopo and Mei by their faces and squeezing until the entire gang backs down.